exalting the melody of freedom. These are the things that will bring it down, 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 down. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud, shout loud, shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, 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 down.
Let me tell you, it's in the air. Joy is in the air. Love is in the air. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Don't sleep on it, brother. You might get left, sister. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Justice. No need to be counted, cause I am down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Down for the end of racism, for the end of bigotry, cause I am down. For the end of misogyny, that's right. For all the isms out there, just down, down, down. Let's bring it down. Rise up, people. No more foolishness, and let's bring it way down.
Riding the river of change into the cries of contrition. This is the way that we bring it down, 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 down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. We are the children of Eden, dancing and celebrating freedom. We are the ones that must bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud, shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. We've got to bring it down, down. Stand up and shout. Stand up and shout. Rise together.
Accountability starts now. The Eric Dawson Radio Show.
Yeah. Rise up. Stand up, shouting loud.
If you are not prepared to come to that table and to represent that voice, don't come. Because we don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. We don't need black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't need Muslims that don't want to be a Muslim voice. We don't need queers that don't want to be a queer voice. And if you're worried about being marginalized and stereotyped, please don't even show up.
Hey guys, good morning. Post Father's Day. How was your Father's Day, Vincent?
Oh man, cute. I guess would be the best way to describe it.
You said cute?
Yeah, intimate.
Okay. What does that mean?
That means that, my wife did all that wonderful thinking and all of her knowledge about me and put together what she thinks I would want.
And how'd that work out?
Well, for the most part, pretty good. I mean, I've got a lot of Eagles paraphernalia. I got a vintage throwback Randall Cunningham jersey that I'm going to send out to him so he can autograph it for me and frame it. Eagles mask, Eagles pajamas. Didn't get the bedroom slippers though. I mean, but hey, there's always next year. Of course, we went to that exclusive French restaurant.
Oh,
For dinner.
Yeah. Oh, you mentioned that. How did it turn out? How was the service?
Service was excellent, and you won't believe what they'll take for tips.
Uh-oh. Hey, Vincent, this is a PG show, man.
Hey, it's Father's Day. I'm taking full advantage of every ask I can get.
Uh-oh. Well, you did say ask with a K, correct?
With a K.
Thank
yes.
you. All right, now. All right, come on.
Yes. So no, she made my favorite scallop dish. I mean, I really love scallops. I mean, did it really good. And my favorite part about when she makes the scallops, of course, the white wine, but she uses bacon. Not wrapping bacon, just bacon bits. That she'll fry up some bacon, chop it up, and then throw that in with the scallops. I mean, and these are some really big scallops. I mean, it was absolutely great.
Oh, that's fantastic, man.
Yeah. Yeah, after all these years, I think I'll keep her.
Uh-oh.
Okay, see, Diane's going to call in and blast me out for that one, and I truly deserve it.
Hey, look, I give you the shovel, you dig your own ditch.
But wait a minute, you gave me the shovel, so you have a level of culpability with this.
Oh, no, I gave you the shovel for something else. What you decided to do with it was your business.
Okay. So how was your Father's Day? Oh, by the way.
Yes.
The amount of influence in people that you know,
Uh-huh.
and with technology, do you know that I've received over 1,400 Father's Day texts?
Oh, wow. That's great.
Well, it wasn't so great for my wife because those texts started at 8 in the morning. So even with the text notification on silence, she still hears the vibrations. Oh, yeah. So, by the time we had church service, by the way, my pastor church Zoom service was off the chain. But, in fact, he even preached about who's your daddy?
Oh, okay.
And he referenced Jesus Christ when they were trying to kill him.
Right.
He preached about, telling, Christ, everyone upset with Christ because Christ was telling them the truth. So he says, I'm telling you the truth. You say that you are the children of Abraham. Then if you are the sons of Abraham and Abraham is your father, then how come you're not acting like him? Which has a lot to do with, even bringing it home in our today's society. We're looking at Abraham, or look at leadership situations that we're dealing with and our present leadership condition. Are we acting more and more like our leader, or are we acting more and more like we belong to Abraham?
Well, yeah. Yeah.
It's a tough one, right?
Yeah, I can't touch that one. I think that, where I am right now with regard to any of this is the idea that folks need to be operating in their own best interests, right? And, whether we're acting like this one or acting like that one, the reality is we have not operated in our best interest. We've been bamboozled and hoodwinked, and we've been convinced through a myriad of methodology to operate in the best interest of other people, and hoping that in doing that something, we get some scraps from the table, and that has not transpired, and it won't. And so for me, leader Abraham, I don't know. I simply say, looking at the data right now as a Black American, we're in trouble. And we need to recognize it. And I'm not talking individualistically. I'm saying as a team, we're in trouble. And until we acknowledge it and until we set a course to change it, we're in trouble. And, like Robert Taylor said when he called in on the show last week, he said, let us not forget, America has a history with the Native American. And look at what it did to the Native American. And so don't believe for a second that we're not on that trajectory. And so if we're waiting for those same people, that same government, to have mercy on us, God help all of us as Black Americans.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if that's not the litmus test of the mindset of America and its leadership, that we consistently, we started out as one nation under God. We started out as being developed as the country where people can come and exercise their religious freedom without being persecuted, harassed, or killed. We started out, being that great shining light of letting the God of our understanding.
So what I'm going to say is I'm going to take all of that back. We started out with ideals of doing that. We didn't do it. America has never lived up to the ideals. Ever. So there were these ideals that were written on paper, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, right? But none of those things, they've always persecuted. Always. Right. So it says that this is the land of blah, 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 you fill in the blank. But they've always run contrary to what the Constitution says. So, go ahead.
Well, I believe that I believe that, yes, running contrast to, but I think a lot of it had to do with them not sticking to their original principles and compromising the language of the country to best suit the interpreter's desire or agenda. We look at one of the big things that they said is that in writing the Constitution, the reason that it took so long was the simple cause is that all men are created equal. They didn't want to have that part in. In fact, it was back and forth. It was all white men are created equal. And then it went back to all men of this descent are created equal. So finally, they had to compromise the simple fact or bring it down to the religious belief that, God created man. And each man he created to be reproduced. And each one had an equal opportunity of their reproduction. So that's how they came up or agreed upon the concept of all men are created equal and endow certain unalienable rights. But yet, and like you said, part of that compromise is that now those inalienable rights had to be legislated again, which turned into a whole bunch of other crazy stuff.
Right.
But that's not just look at the children of Israel. They got 10 commandments that they turned into 667 laws from 10 commandments.
Right. So I titled this show A New Day, right? And so when we talk about the founding of this country. All right, that was a new day. We talk about the investment that Black Americans, enslaved Americans, what they contributed to extricate America from its relationship and the tyranny of Britain, right? And it was a new day. We talk about the new day of the Emancipation Proclamation. We talk about these new days. At every turn, there was change, Vincent. But like I said before we went on air, change doesn't always mean progress, right? And so we did have change. But when we look at our condition now, as we're slowly emerging from this COVID-19 shutdown and what it all means, and the protests and the laying bare of where Black Americans are in America, right? From how COVID-19 exposed the neglect, the negligence of this country, to the continued brutality by the police and its government. We're looking at change for sure, again, but is that change going to be progress? Welcome, Diane.
Good morning. How are you?
Diane.
Good morning, Diane.
Good morning.
I am beat, like literally. I am, and I got to let you know, Diane, we have Dee Dee. If you remember, she called in and gave us information about that senior building when they were opening it up and allowing testing to come in.
Yes.
Dee Dee has some more information she wants to share, so she's going to call in at 10:30 or thereabouts. But yeah, I'm hanging in there. How was the Mister's Father's Day, Diane?
His Father's Day was good. We did a
good, just
backyard
good,
barbecue.
Just good, just
no, it
good.
was. I think it was great. I think he had a good time. I did lobster on the grill. He's talking about his alright.
See, that's why I'm asking him. I'm
Okay,
not gonna
here it is. Let him tell you. How was your Father's Day?
I had a wonderful Father's Day. What's up, Eric? Happy Father's Day to you. I had a great Father's Day. She did a great job. Eric, she baked her best cake yet.
Did
the
she?
head already big. Her curls falling out because her head getting so big. Did her best cake.
Hey, listen, man, we gotta stay on her, man. When we're doing our best on the show to stay on and make sure you have every Father's Day you have is fantastic, man.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all. It's a lot of effort goes into this.
It's good to be appreciated.
Yeah.
All right, brother. I'm glad you had a great time. Oh my gosh.
God, stay safe. Have a good week.
Hey, you too, brother. Thank you. There you go, Diane. See, now you're on code. Now you're on code.
There you go, Diane.
Hey, Diane.
Whatever.
I love your tomatoes.
Set an example for all the women and how they should, honor their kings on Father's Day.
Oh, absolutely. What was you going to say, Eric?
I love your tomatoes. Your tomato plants are looking great.
Those were just cherry tomatoes. I have beefsteak tomatoes that are coming up. I got my potatoes that are really sprouting. I'm so excited. I think potatoes are the easiest thing to grow ever.
Yeah.
Don't jinx yourself.
All you have to do is throw them in some dirt. He's talking about don't jinx myself. All you have to do is throw them in some dirt and just keep piling the dirt on until they grow.
Yeah.
And then they'll just grow up and they'll fall over and die. And when the leaves fall off and die, then you just dump out the potatoes.
There you go.
I watched the video yesterday. I'm real amped on that. I'm excited.
Hey, Diane, listen, you're going to have a lot of food to eat.
Absolutely.
Your neighbors are going to love you.
I'm going to start my own community garden right here in my yard.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Your neighbors are you're going to have more than you guys can eat.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, it's a
I'm
wonderful
definitely
thing.
hoping so I can give out to my neighbors, definitely.
Yeah. When I lived in Scotch Plains, I had this old Italian family that lived next door to me, and they had converted, I'd say, more than 2/3 of their backyard into a garden. And they, when it was harvest time, I mean, Diane, I had to start turning her away she was bringing so many tomatoes and zucchini and eggplant and all this stuff. She was just bringing it over, and then at some point you could see on her face she was just getting rid of it. Like, so it went from
she was just tired of looking at it.
Yeah, so she would come over with this sheepish look on her face with this big bucket or pail of stuff, and I was like, no.
Like, please take this.
So, but if I was into canning and jarring tomatoes and stuff, it would have been wonderful. But yeah, she had an amazing garden. Anyway, hey Diane, before we move on, because I know Dee Dee is going to call in. Somebody called me this morning, and they said that they were hanging out with a friend of theirs. I mentioned this to Vincent. Went to get your take on it. They were hanging out with a friend of theirs, and this is in Newark, and code enforcement pulled up. And apparently this gentleman has 2 vehicles that are inoperable, right? I'm assuming. But they are at the back of his driveway toward his backyard. And he's got a pretty deep driveway. Though you can still see the cars from the street. They're all the way back by the garage or the backyard. Anyway, code enforcement came and said that they were going to fine him because those vehicles were inoperable. What say you, Councilwoman?
Well, by legal ordinance, which is in place in most towns, it is against the law to have a certain amount of inoperable cars unregistered on your property in your yard.
Really? Just on your property?
Yeah, on your property. If it is unregistered, it is deemed, inoperable, and therefore you have to remove it from your property. Most towns have that ordinance that's been in place for probably 25, 30, 50, maybe 100 years. There's some reasoning behind that. Because of the demographics of how we live and the density of the houses and stuff, keeping inoperable cars and vehicles on your property, for some people, turns it into a junkyard and an eyesore, and it also is a place of shelter for animals. So that is a lot of different environmental reasons as to why they want you to remove the vehicles. I've had people call in Hillside, various older people that keep inoperable cars. In fact, they're in Union, in the township of Union. I had a tenant who kept an operable minivan in his driveway, and the neighbor next door called the township literally almost every week, and they gave the property owner a fine. The property owner was handicapped and still couldn't move the vehicle. They still came out and gave him a fine, to the point that we ended up removing the vehicle because it wasn't working and selling it off. So it's one of those things. The best thing, if you have a car like that, put it in your garage, sight unseen. But if it's out and open in your driveway, can be seen from a neighbor's window from their yard, they can still call.
Best thing is not to piss off your neighbor.
Pretty much. That's why you need to be good to your neighbors, because they'll jam you up.
So,
I mean,
so
not
Vincent
that,
mentioned...
Not that you should be doing illegal stuff, but they'll make it even harder for you.
Correct. Because the majority of them are only enforceable once they gain notification or notoriety. So
Right, because code enforcers aren't riding around looking at people's driveways. They got so many other things they're supposed to be doing. The only time they come to your house is if a neighbor has called on you.
See, Eric, what did I tell you earlier, Eric? Code enforcement does not go around looking to, ruin
So you don't believe that code enforcement is just having to roll up on them? You think that neighbor...
Look, I'm telling you, no. I've been a victim. I've had a person call code enforcement on me when I was getting my steps repaired. At the time, my mother was dying, all at the same time. Because they believed that I didn't have a permit. But because I was an elected official, I'm not allowed to pull a permit from my township. I had to pull a permit from a neighboring town for them to do the enforcement. So there's no, compromising, conflict of interest. So when they went to the Hillside Township, to file a complaint. Court enforcement came out here. Okay, all well and good, but I showed them my documentation, which came from the next town over. So they do that.
So
No, not all the time. On 90% of the time, 95% of the time, I'm going to say code enforcement comes to these houses because a neighbor or somebody in the area calls them to come out.
got
Now,
it.
the other 5% is a political thing that they're doing because they got an angst with the resident or they're trying to get back at them. That does happen. So I
Got it.
can't say it doesn't happen. It does happen.
So if the person who told me about it is listening, there you have it. Hey, guys, did I tell you, speaking of code enforcement and stuff, I got my neighbor who's doing my lawn, right? So and I think it's pretty cool. And actually, I made a suggestion to him from a business standpoint. I said, hey, listen, man, you should just kind of go around to all of the neighbors, see who's, maybe you can offer a group rate to people if they all, sign in to get their lawns done, because then you're just on this one block and you can knock out a whole bunch at one time, and you can keep uniformity and all that kind of stuff and whatever. So anyway, last weekend he came, and we have an ordinance here that you can't start until 8 o'clock, right? So apparently he started doing the lawn maybe 10 minutes early. And so the neighbor, who's a renter, now the owners we're really good friends with, but the renter on the first floor came out and jammy flat blasted the landscaper for starting early, right? And then told us that she was going to call the town, right? And so I said, well, just having a conversation with me and not threatening to call a town would suffice, right? I'm not trying to create any hardships for anybody. And certainly if the guy can wait an extra 15 minutes, I mean, I'll make him wait an extra 15 minutes, not a problem. Anyway, the funny thing is, Saturday I walk outside because I hear a lawnmower going, and I see the landscaper, and he's now contracted to do their lawn. I thought that was hilarious, because now I'm saying to myself, well, wait a minute. So now the owners of the house contracted him. So I'm wondering now what the tenant is thinking about this, because literally she gave him an earful. But sometimes, you want to try as best you can to avoid the conflicts with neighbors, because they can create pettiness. But it works both ways, right? I mean, I think that, a neighbor, if you're doing something that is offending them, instead of just calling the police or calling code enforcement or calling whom, just knock on the door, neighborly thing, right? Maybe bring over a bag of cookies or something and introduce yourself, especially if you don't know them. And then say, hey, listen, I go to bed early because I wake up early, and I hear your music. Would you mind, after such and such a time, turning it down a little bit so that I can get some sleep? I don't think that that's a problem. But when you just immediately go to calling like the enforcer out, nothing good is ever going to come from that.
Okay, well, saying that, what do you think about the firecrackers? Because people are out in the streets with firecrackers.
My God.
They were
Diane.
on my block yesterday, all in the street. We called the police. Now, mind you, the mayor lives on my street, and they've been going off for days. She's never done anything, but, she got some conflict with the police department, so they're not coming out for her anyway. So somebody called. They came out yesterday and stopped them. But literally, when I was walking the dog this morning, you could see the remnants of firecrackers all over the street. So what do you do about that? Do you not call?
Hey, Vincent, is that
you? Have a conversation.
Vincent, is that your phone?
No, that's not me.
Oh, is that you, Diane? Okay. So so let me first start by saying the night before last, they were shooting off firecrackers as late as 1 o'clock in the morning, right? And Amina was annoyed, but we were so exhausted that we ultimately fell asleep through it. Again, I think that you go around the corner. Now, so first, let me say this. They know at 1 o'clock in the morning people are asleep, right? So them shooting off firecrackers, they're not very neighborly. They're not interested in living in a communal environment, right? Those are the people who throw garbage on the street. Those are the people who are bad actors in the community for the most part. Those are the ones who will ultimately bring you down, right? That's just who they are, because they know at 1 o'clock in the morning. Now, if you're shooting off fireworks at 8 o'clock at night, right? People are doing that. People are still up and active. But at 1 o'clock in the morning, no, not so much. And then, like you said, Diane, and then they leave the remnants all over the place, right? So they really don't give a damn. I still say go by, make the gesture, and then call the police, because they're not going to comply. But at least you'll be able to say, hey, listen, I came and spoke to you. You chose not to be neighborly, right? You chose not to care about the fact that I'm trying to sleep. And this is the other thing that I'll say. The majority of the people who do that, unfortunately, are not homeowners. They're renters, right? So they don't care. The homeowner cares.
Well, I would actually say two things. First, I think you're right in theory, because, in the era that I grew up in, that's what you did. But the second thing is, today's temperament is a total different environment, where young people are so much into them and themselves and not caring about the other neighbors, or understanding the subtle nuances of group dynamics. Not to mention the simple fact that a lot of these kids are packing. So I would really walk gingerly into that situation with some of these people, not unless you really, really, really know them.
Well, but there, you know what, and I'm not disagreeing with you, right? So cautiously, gingerly, all of those things. But even the most hardcore person, 1 o'clock in the morning, you walk up and say, hey man, how you doing? And you could gauge, right, their temperament, right? And if they don't seem receptive to you just being there, then you might not want to pursue the conversation, right? But at that point, you just go and call the police. But now you're going to recognize too, because I found this out as well. Police officers they don't always operate keeping your anonymity intact, right? You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the cops are telling on you.
You got that. There you go. Thanks for simplifying that statement. But yeah, so the police will go up and they'll say, oh, your neighbor at 272 was complaining about your music, and so you have to just be aware of that. And I don't know that the police are under any obligation to maintain your anonymity, right? And so that presents a hurdle for people, especially what you're talking about, Vincent, where you may know that those people down there are bad actors, right? And that it may create some issues. So, and the police, they may be annoyed that they had to come out for the call, right? And that's part of their issue too, right? So they're not necessarily trying to create an environment where they are discouraging that behavior and encouraging more community participation to see something and say something, right? So they discourage it by snitching on you, right? And now you've got an issue, and so you're less likely to call the police again. So that all needs to be addressed as well. I told you about the story where in Newark, where the police, after the woman told about the drug dealers, the police came by and they shined a flashlight on her house, or the light at the top of their vehicle. They shined it on the house, and in the morning, she got a knock on the door from some unsavory people saying that reminding her that snitches get stitches. And so so your point is well taken, Vincent.
But Eric, I think that depends on the climate of the community and the leadership that allows stuff like that to happen. In Jersey City, they just put in place a separate complaint board just to oversee the complaints for fireworks, and a separate division within the police department to address it, because they're having so many issues. But if you go into South Orange or Maplewood, if you know, they don't have that issue because they have their annual 4th of July fireworks held in the town. So they don't have the abundance of people out in front of their houses trying to blow up their houses with fireworks and stuff like that. So I think it again, we always say this, it starts with the leadership and trickles down to how the community will interact with each other. Because if the leadership of the town does not allow certain things, it just won't go down.
Exactly. And that's what we talked about earlier. It's all about the leadership and the concept and interpretation. If you've got great leaders setting the tone and the pace and how the town should be ran, and based upon that narrative, people tend to follow suit. And I'm a firm believer that, you know what, I'm not into making complaints, and I'm not into snitching. I'm going to straight up tell you, rather than going to the police. And with some people, I even said, look, I could, you're doing this because of this. I understand youthful exuberance, and you do stupid things when you're a kid. That's part of the growing up process. But, he said also, there's a level of respect that you have to give for those of us who kind of really, really, really love our sleep. And, I get more respect from them by being straight up and honest with them than I do from calling the cops. But then I do, like I said earlier, you got to realize that sometimes with some of these kids, like I said, they're packing.
Yep. Okay, hold on. I think we got our call. Hello, caller.
Hey, good morning, Eric. Good morning, Vince. Good morning, Diane. How y'all doing?
Hey, what's going on, man?
Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Farrakhan. I just called the message, y'all. It ain't the leadership of the town that matters. It's the leadership of the household.
Exactly.
Let's be real, right? If your parents got you letting you out at 1 o'clock in the morning shooting off some fireworks, or worse, if they're the ones doing it, that's the problem. They don't have nothing to do. Your city government has nothing to do with whether or not you know how to act civil. That is about the household and the household you come up in.
Yeah, acting civil and maintaining is two different things. Government is supposed to maintain stability.
Right.
Well, listen.
And like we said, it's the leadership. I mean, leadership in the household is the same as leadership in the township, leadership in the neighborhood, your block captains, and all of that. I think Diane hit it right on the point. A majority of the pace and tone is set for what people will tolerate and deal with has primarily to do with the reaction of the leadership.
No, but I agree with Farrakhan. But I agree with Farrakhan.
If you send your police department to shut down these things, people are all out in the middle of the street, complaining and whining, right? They fighting the police about every little thing, right? Yeah, police companies can damn near do nothing. That's why they're saying, look, we're going to start turning our badges and having the blue wave of sick day or blue flu, whatever they call it. You know what I'm saying? It's because people, whenever the police do try to do their job half the time, people are going against them, saying that they're not doing it right. They're being too rude. They're being too mean. They're being too firm or too whatever.
I agree.
My father made me do it, and I'm glad for it now.
Yeah, I agree with Farrakhan. I think that you have the police there to not to parent, right? And in a lot of cases, what took place over the last couple of days with all these fireworks was a lack of home training, right? And so, you can't now enforce through the police department, poor or absent home training. You have to have within the neighborhood, you have to have folks who are willing to stand up and push back against it. It's when those good people, if you want to call them good people, sit down and they allow bad actors to take over. So most of our communities and neighborhoods now have been overrun with uncivilized people, right? And so, the more civilized people have decided that it is in their best interest to just go in the house, lock their doors, and pull their window shades down. And then you want the police to come out and you want the police to handle it for you. That's a problem. It's a big problem.
Well, I'll also say this. See, some of our neighbors use the police to do what they're afraid to do. They're afraid to actually go to their neighbor and tell them, look, your kid's acting up a little bit, have them calm down. And that that does cause some issues as well. But once again, it's like Farrakhan said, it's the leadership in the home with that incident. And the other one is because people are afraid to address their neighbors, now they have to bring the police into it. So yeah, it's a slippery slope. And like I said, that's a process that has to be at today's handled with a great deal of discretion.
So listen, I'm watching a video. Somebody just sent this to me. I guess this is at the Trump rally in Tulsa. What do you guys think about that?
That wasn't a rally. That was a town hall meeting. That's what that was.
So the question was, well, the video that I have is, and I guess they had a black section. I don't know. But these are all black people who are being videoed dancing and partying. And I see no white people in this clip. Like,
that's because they came together. See, everybody keeps saying it's a black section. Those 9 out of 10 kids, they don't know the race of the people when they put them in there. Those people pick those tickets together. That's probably a group of people who ordered tickets in section B50 through B.
No. So listen, I'm going to say to you, I'm going to disagree with you because I've been a part of putting together rallies. They put people in specific sections. Just like when you see the person who is hosting the rally, the candidate, behind them, all of those people who are put behind them, they're positioned specifically where they are by ratio of black to white, women to men, young to old. All of that is intentional.
Yes, it is.
Right. So I'm not sure. That's why I said I'm not sure if this is a black section. But they set it up like that, Farrakhan, so that, and not only that, but they produce it. So when they tell the camera to swing to this particular section, it is to drive a narrative. Yeah, it's to drive a narrative.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Look at the Hillary Clinton campaign, where Chuck Norris was always positioned in one location. And the guy with the boxing gloves, he was always in that same position. Every route. Yes, they do stage people because that is setting off the narrative or the direction of if this guy is inclusive, exclusive, the amount of people, the amount of influence that they have with the people that they're bringing in. I mean, and listen, can we be honest for a minute? It is not. It's not uncommon, or nobody thinks it, to be hard to believe that at Donald Trump's campaign rally that he would not have a black section. Can we talk? Can we keep this real?
Listen.
Come on. We got a vice president that can't say Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
Can we talk?
Yeah.
Now, listen. Let's not blow smoke up people's behinds and be overly, down the middle. Sometimes we gotta take it for what it is. Yeah, it's a black section. So when they pan to the right, they saw the black people. So he can look and go, look at my African American friends over there.
Yeah.
God. But by that same token, you got a vice president or former vice president running for president who will say Black Lives Matter, but then go in another room and say, hey, don't worry about it, guys. Ain't nothing going to change. Well, I didn't hear that about it. That's what I'm saying. It's all pandering. I ain't people. They talked about Trump, and I put up the little meme, right? They talked about Trump standing in front of the church with the Bible, and then the very next day, they went and took a knee with kente cloth. You know what I'm saying? Right? So it's all the same, man. It's all he's standing there with the Bible upside down. This is the same president that said,
But Farrakhan's point, which is the point that I keep making, is they're all pandering. So if you can choose to be on one side and then fight against the other side because you decide to be side blue, or you could be side red and you can fight against the blue side. I think where a lot of people, more and more, I'm talking to more and more people, They are saying, I'm not on either side. None of this is working for me, has never really worked for me. I'm finally waking up. And so, yes, like Farrakhan said, Donald Trump's got his black section, and Nancy Pelosi, who's the richest congresswoman in Washington, had on some fake kente cloth taking a knee. When she wouldn't take a knee next to Colin Kaepernick, though. Right? So
Of course not.
So what are we talking about, right? So that was her black section, right? So you understand what I'm saying? So
and that's what people have to pay attention to. They're both pandering for the black vote. That's how important we are, but how much we ignore what's going on and say, oh, we're not going to vote either way, instead of using it for our advantage.
Correct. And when this election could be a solid wake-up call to the nation, because you talked about new beginnings. Let's start that new beginnings by letting them know that we are in tune with what's going on in our world, and we are taking our rightful position in this country to have a change in effect to our advantage.
right, but what again? I say to that, Vincent. They just had an election in Orange, and they elected the same mayor. They had Board of Education elections. They elected the same failed people. They had all kinds of local elections, and the trend is that they're electing the same failed people that are propping up the same failed political parties. And so there's no reason, if we're looking at key performance indicators, there's no reason to believe that they're going to have this one line of thinking when it comes to local elections, right? That they throw caution to the wind. They prop up failed systems. They prop up failed elected officials. But somehow over here, they're gonna act differently in a national election where.
Eric,
Yep.
I gotta say that. You know I love you, right?
Yeah, man.
Okay. Now that's the carrot. Here's the stick. If you believe that, then you express to every one of your listeners that you are the greatest hypocrite in the world.
Why?
Because you've got a failed congressman that you're running to take his place.
No.
We've got a failed senator that I'm running to take their place.
So that's different.
I believe that people stuck to the same failed ideology, and at this point in time are not sick and tired of that and want change. Then I might as well just save my money and time and energy and not run.
No. You're missing what I'm saying. So yes, on a local level. See, we're talking local level, and this is what I'm saying. So our failed senator is more important to me to replace the failed senator. It's more important for me to replace our failed congressman, because what they do for the 10th, 11th congressional districts and other districts that are in need of resources, right? These guys and women,
Okay.
right? So I'm saying focusing and making decisions at this other level where it's not impactful to us, at these levels where the fight is, right? The fight is in the Congress. The fight is in, it's with the Senate. That's where the fight is. Let's go to that fight. The fight is in these municipalities, at these city halls. Let's deal with those fights. But when we're not dealing with those fights, how do you really expect that we're going to make any meaningful change at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue?
And I have to agree with that ideology. However, I'm the person who's always saying the glass is half full. I believe that that people are waking up, and maybe on that orange issue they woke up a little late. But on other issues, people are actually starting to take a positive stand. One of the biggest things that we saw in this new beginning, our new norm, is the group of people that everybody made jokes about take a stand that everybody in the other generations were afraid to do. We saw the millennials out there talking about Black Lives Matter. And not just black millennials, white, Hispanic, all of them. We saw them all making them pay attention. We saw these group of children go up and march on Washington about gun control because they're tired of violence and shootings in their schools. We see now the new beginning, and these millennials in which people were making every joke about are now taking their stance.
Well, we'll see if they're taking a stand on this election, because that's where the rubber meets the road.
I agree
All
with
of
that
this
one.
marching, all of this talking, they still have not gone to the elected officials with any demands, any list of agenda of what needs to be done. The elected officials are still coming to us telling us, oh, we're going to put this police reform in place. We're going to set up this civilian advisory board. But nobody that has been marching has been a part of that conversation. So, again, we're taking what they're giving us. So let's see what they're going to do.
And that part I do agree. And I'm really tired of us taking what they're giving us. And we need to, and those of us who understand the narrative, we need to start, blowing that stuff up. All you're giving us is platitude. When have you ever talked to us about this? That's not what we want. You know the worst thing to do is to help somebody the way that you want rather than the way that they need. Anybody ever got that? You ask for help, and you're putting this thing on the shelf, so somebody comes and stands next to it, put their hand on the ladder. I mean, that's not the help that I need. We have to stop this. Let's now get and I'm really tired of us taking what these politicians give us. Like they're like, okay, we're going to make Juneteenth a national holiday. We didn't ask for that. We're asking now that we break the systematic racism. We're asking now that you that you take your knee off our neck and put it on the neck of this institutional racism. That's what we're asking for. That's just me. Anybody else out there want the same thing?
Like Diane said, man, the rubber's gonna meet the road. It's already meeting the road, right? Just look across the country at, these local elections. To me, they're indicators, right? They're indicators about whether people are really looking to make transformative change, right? Not just change. And the indicators right now are no, that they're not. That they allow people like Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, they allow people like Feinstein, who's been there forever.
Lindsey Graham.
They allow, those two, right? So we already know about those people. I'm talking about the wolves in sheep's clothing, which are the Democrats, right? So we already know the wolf, right? I'm talking about the fox. See, so if we want to say that the GOP is the wolf, got it. I'm saying we haven't paid attention to the fox. Right? And so we need to start paying attention to the fox. And it's all of those people who surreptitiously put on like it was, and thanks for bringing it up again, Farrakhan, because it was just disgusting to watch. That they slinked over there in their nastiness and they threw on this kente cloth and they said, you know what? We're going to show these black people that we, that we're in touch with them. And I'm talking about people who've been in Congress for 60 years, or been in government for 60 years, for 50 years, for 37 years. They said, this is how we're going to show them. We're not going to give them anything tangible. This is what we're going to do because this is what's worked before. Right?
Of course.
Right. And so what I'm saying is, I understand.
We talked about the pandering, right, Eric?
Right.
Okay, now we talked about these same wolves, right, Eric? So now what we need to do is talk about changing the narrative. Let's now get into and drive it into people's heads, because repetition is the only way that we're actually going to get it. Let's drive over and over and over again how they need to change not only their national, but also their local, and drive it until they get tired of hearing us.
Yeah.
I'm sick and tired of people talking about how bad their school board is. The governor just released, $14 billion to cover the school fund that they were supposed to be getting through the pandemic? Yet these local school boards, and Newark has a $1 billion. Orange is pretty close to that. Not to mention, where I am in Pennsauken, they're over $150 million in school budget. Yet we can't get what we need. We need to start looking. We need to look at local just as much as we look nationally. And the biggest problem that they have with the African American community is that they only stand up for the big elections. And the small things they sit up here that affect them on a daily, they pay nothing. They pay no attention to. There's no way in the world somebody should win an election with under 1,000 votes. No
Right.
Especially in neighborhoods where African Americans have the predominance of the actual votes.
I don't know what an African American is. I know what a Black American is. I don't know what an African American is.
Okay, well, look, we could go all 70s with this since Black America has the dominant vote in those particular areas. That's just pure. Let me call it for what this is. And let's get the disclaimer. This is not the voice and opinion of the Eric Dawson Show, but this is the expressed opinion of Vincent Squire. I am so tired of dealing with trifling black people who complain about stuff happening, yet they let the guy who is sitting up there with his knee on their neck win with under 1,000 votes. Don't sit up there and complain. As my grandfather used to say, strap on a pair and get out there and make it happen. Don't sit up there and complain about it. Do something about it. And one of the biggest things that they could do, the easiest thing that they could do right now is vote. We can't even get them to go online, totally anonymous, and take a census to be counted, which has a great deal to do with your federal funding, which has a great deal to do with how they actually grade and rate your schools, and your schools be able to get money to help that, which reduces your taxes, which has a great deal to do with you getting more representation in congressmen in your district. We can't even get them to do that. So if it takes us arousing, inspiring, and motivating these millennials that everybody's been talking so bad about to make the positive change for this new world that we're directing, or we need to set the narrative to, then I'm all for it. Everybody talk crazy about Bernie, but Bernie did address the issues of the millennials. And like I said, the millennials right now are the only ones with enough balls to stand up to people.
Yeah.
Eric, did you read the article that I sent you in NewJersey.com? They talked about businesses, corporations, large corporations had gotten together and given the city of Newark $10 million, and that the city talked about how they were going to use the money in government, women in small business and minority businesses, how they're going to be distributing the money about that. And I thought, if large corporations wanted to help businesses, small businesses, minority business, women-owned businesses, then they should be finding those particular businesses, giving the money directly to them, mentoring them, and helping them grow their business, and stop filtering their money through government and using it as a shield to say we're trying to help small businesses, which actually, in fact, what they're trying to do is protect themselves as we are continuing to go through this pandemic. So, what are your thoughts?
So what happens, Diane, is, even well-meaning corporations, there has to be an apparatus. There has to be some sort of structure that is in place that has some sort of a track record of being able to operate efficiently, right? And so if you have this money, want to participate in helping, businesses, then where do they go? They can either create, so I would say these companies that wanted to put this $10 million together, they could go and create their own organization through which they fund this thing, and then they bring in these businesses, and then they help them. Or they go to existing institutions, whether it's the government or nonprofits that are within the community, and say, look, you have a relationship, or you should, with the businesses in your community. We have these resources that we need to get out there. Now, the government or these nonprofits say, hey, listen, we have a mechanism to reach these businesses. And so we can partner with you. We can take that money and we can execute. The challenge is that it's all smoke and mirrors, right? There really is no functioning institution, right? They don't do a good job. If you look at impact, they don't. What they do a good job at, and we have to be careful of this, is who's in charge of this particular agency that is now going to be responsible for this $10 million getting to where it needs to go. How much are they going to be skimming for friends, for part of the friends and family plan? What part of that $10 million is going to be allocated to administrative costs and salaries and things like that? Because that's where government first starts looking, and not just government, but most of these institutionalized organizations. The first thing they look at is, hey, I can employ my cousin. I can employ my sister. I can employ my friend, my girlfriend, right? I can take care of them. And that's so they don't immediately start looking at how to take that $10 million and to find these businesses that are in need. They look to figure out how they're going to skim off the top for kickbacks, how they're going to take care of the friends and family plan, and that concerns me the most. Hello.
Yeah, that's the problem. I think that is specifically where you have residents and the communities should jump in and say, we need to create an oversight of all of these corporations that are claiming they're giving the money out to these small businesses. We need to track it. We want to see who gets it and how it's being used. That's something the community can do and set up their own advisory board. They don't have to wait. And that's another thing. Why do residents wait for the government to say it's okay for me to set up an advisory board and I'm going to pick you to be on it? Set up your own. You don't have to wait for them to create your own oversight or watchdog board to see where the funding and stuff is going on. It's going to take more work and more dedication because you're not going to be directly given information immediately, but you don't have to wait for government agencies to say we're going to set up an advisory board.
True. And another thing, if we're actually going to do that in terms of making a change in this new world, let's have a lot more transparency with these groups. There should be no need for us to actually have to put in an Oprah request and wait months to get the results. We're talking about the information age and the social media age, where they should be able to go online, look at what they need to look at, and find out where this money is going to. Not only that, then since it's the information age, we can also track who these people are that are getting it. When we do that, we stop seeing a lot of abuse in these things. Like, okay, let's look at the abuse of our gas tax. Governor Christie put in a gas tax and put it in a slush fund. Then, after the tax accumulated somewhere close to $400 million, he now wanted the oversight or committee, which would actually take care of and appropriate the money from this slush fund that came from our gas taxes. Thank God, before he got that new committee started, we had an election, and the Senate voted that down. If not, Christie would have had that money and probably would have been president. So we need more transparency with this, and we also need. My honest to God belief is that we need to actually do more independent. I'm actually repeating what Diane said. We need more independent watchdogs rather than government oversights. That's like putting the fox in charge of the hen house that the wolf had basically set up. That doesn't make sense for us to do that.
So, in principle, yep. In practice, nope. It is not going to work. It's just not going to work. You see, so remember we were talking about institutional versus structural versus systemic, right? This is structural. So there are things in place right now that say that anything you do is going to fail because structurally it is set up to benefit the elite and cripple the marginalized. That is it.
Yes.
So you have to tear the structure down. You know what I'm saying? So you can't take, here's an example. You can't take a house that we understand the foundation is compromised, but we're going to go up on the second floor and we're going to keep building. No, you have to say no. The foundation is compromised. We need to shore up the foundation, or we may have to demolish the house and start all over again. Right? But you can't ignore the fact that the foundation is compromised and just continue to build. And that's what they're doing. They just continue with a program, with a this, with a that. We're going to do this thing, and they're not dealing structurally with what the problems are.
I agree. And well, if I could go with your house building example, the foundation is compromised. So since the foundation is compromised, we need to increase the value of the structure by pouring $10 million on the second floor.
Well, to give you an actual example, think about the American Dream Mall that they built out in Rutherford. That took them over 10 years to start to build, and the state kept pouring money in. And Christie said, no, we're going to give them another $10 million. We'll give another $25 million. We'll give them another $30 million. And now it has come to the time that they have actually invested $2.8 billion in that American Dream. That is not completely done. And now the tenants who were supposed to be tenants have filed a lawsuit because the American Dream Mega Mall claims they will never open again, even though they were never completely open when they opened up back in November, I believe it was. They only opened up, I think, one section of it, just the water park, the ski area, and like a couple of little eateries, but that was it. So all of that money down the drain, taxpayers' money.
I'll give you another one. The Revel Casino, in which the governor poured in 120 million of the New Jersey pension fund. And they kept pouring it in and pouring it in, and it failed. It lasted, 6 months before he went bankrupt? And not only that, then the government controlled who brought the facility after the bankruptcy sale. Then, on top of that, the person that they put in charge of buying it, or led everybody in this bankruptcy court to buy it, he only had it for 9 months, and then he went under and sold it to another group. We really
for a whole lot more money. Right? For a whole lot more money, man. When he sold the hell out of it. He made a nice little piece of change on it, like $400 million or something like that. Right? Is what it got sold for. So you ended up making like $160 million off of that deal or something like that.
Yeah, for a deal, because I can tell you why I know this so well is because we put a group together, and we had $73 million in cash to actually buy it, and they turned us down and gave it to him for $50. So you can't tell me that, when one thing that I really truly believe that we need to stop doing is letting the government bail out businesses. We need to stop doing that, because look, and they're bailing out these large businesses. And all they're doing is taking out tax dollars and helping these corporations and these presidents and CEOs make bigger golden parachutes. Let's look at the bailout right now. Amtrak sat up there and held everybody hostage and said that if they don't get $60 billion, they're closing, and they got it. Let's look at the airlines. It's hitting us somewhere close to $300 billion, and they're getting it. We need to stop bailing out these businesses, and they all say the same thing. Well, if we don't bail out the businesses, there's going to be rampant unemployment. No, if we don't bail out the businesses, we're basically keeping our tax dollars down. Two, we're allowing somebody else who has better business sense and savvy to actually take over it.
Yeah.
Am I right or wrong?
So I don't necessarily mind bailing out a business if they really need it, right? But here's the thing that we found about bailing the businesses out: that firstly, they make horrible decisions. Well, I'm not even gonna say they're making horrible decisions, right? All the decisions that they are making are about profiteering, at the top levels of the company. So the employees that they use as pawns to try to leverage a bailout, when that comes, they don't give a damn about those employees during normal course of business. And so I think that one of the things that people got to in this time when they were talking about bailing people out, they were saying, look, we can't do the buybacks, right? That became a big issue, and some of the other things that were identified in the last bailout. So I think that companies play a major role and a very important role. I think that capitalism has run amok, right? I think that we need to get a hold of it, and we need to understand the actual balance between corporate and employee and government, right? Right now, I think that we act too emotionally. I'm talking about the public and going, oh my God, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. And then two, the government that is supposed to work for us, we have finally begun to recognize that it doesn't. It works for those corporations. So once we put all of that in balance, in proper perspective, I think that we'll be better off. Here, I want to ask this question. Go ahead. I'm sorry. What?
2 questions, Eric. Now, the businesses that are bailed out, the businesses that have been bailed out, first of all, they've been bailed out because they are contributors to what?
Right, we understand that, right? That their lobby groups are down in Washington, and every single decision that is being made, every policy that is being discussed, it has nothing or very little to do with the American people and has everything to do with corporations.
Okay, now let's keep this local. We keep voting in these same people because of what, Eric?
Well, you go ahead and answer the question.
We keep bringing in these same people, and we keep allowing these same failed politicians to be elected because they are backed by, a lot of them, a great deal of political power or corporation.
Yeah.
And they sell us out on a local level. Incredible. You wouldn't believe, and Diane, maybe you can confirm some of this because you were in council, you wouldn't believe how much stuff gets done in terms of construction by big campaign donors. There's a guy in Pennsauken right now who develops and renovates schools. He's the worst architect in the world, but he gets every job. Why? He's a big campaign donor.
Right. So when folks are sick and tired, and they'll change it. Hey, Diane, you sent something, and I think we talked about it a little bit. I told you about the bar down the street from me.
Yes.
Right, that
yes.
Where the people were out there wilding, no mask, no nothing, man, no social distancing, and I rolled my window up going 40 miles an hour past them. And in this article, the headline says, New Jersey bar has outdoor dining license revoked after beer garden packed with people. I mean,
now that's the way to shut down a business and send an example.
Just be done. I think that the talking is over, right? And this is where, so Vincent, we always say you can't legislate stupid. I disagree. Here you go. Right? So you just shut them down. You say, look, if you don't, starting now, if you don't comply, when we come, there will be no warning, there will be no citation, we will shut you down. That's it. Done.
Yeah, as it should be. I think with that situation, like even with the situation that you saw, now that there's going to be more outdoor dining and even more takeout, I think businesses are trying to make up for all of the lost revenue over the last couple of months.
Sure they are.
Sure they are.
So they're not paying attention to even the social distancing being outside. In their minds, they're thinking, we're outside, it's open air, people went to protest, we're good. But that's still, I don't believe, the case to be. So I think a lot of other restaurants are going to fall into this same category. They're going to start to get shut down and get fined, and that's going to hurt them even more than being able to just follow the rules of the land. Is Farrakhan still on?
I don't know.
Because I have a question. Yeah, Farrakhan. I have a question for him because I had to offer the restaurants, another business. The beauty salons are supposed to be opening up. Beauty salons, barbershops supposed to be open effective today.
I'm standing at the door right now.
However, I know in some communities they have what you call these doobie shops, which are run by Dominican doobie shops or barber shops. And some of these shops only have one person who may have a license in the entire shop, and everybody else is just operating and doing business as usual. So I'm wondering if these shops are going to be reopened up regarding, to do business as usual, or they're going to start shutting them down as well. Because I know in November, right before Christmas, between November and January, they did a big sweep in Elizabeth of all of these doobie shops and shut them down for not for having unlicensed stylists inside their shops.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I agree with that. They should be shutting them down. But here's the thing, and I hate to step on anybody's hustle, but when your hustle, when it's so easy for you to turn your hustle legitimate into an entrepreneur, and you're not doing the right thing, I think they do need to start enforcing that. But most important, you know what I believe they should have enforced? They should have enforced that Donald Trump rally where those people were not wearing masks.
Here, wait. Let's take this call. Hold on. Hello, caller.
Hey, what's happening now? It's
6,200 people.
1 second, Farrakhan.
Okay.
Go ahead, Farrakhan.
Go ahead, Farrakhan.
No, I was calling. Diane said something, and so I called back.
Okay.
I have a question about the shop, the beauty salons and the barbershops. I know in Elizabeth, right before January, they did a big sweep in Elizabeth to close down these doobie shops because I know you're familiar. There's usually only one person licensed in the shop, and everybody else is, working as stylists. Do you think that these doobie shops are going to be able to reopen? Is the health department coming down? Are they going to be doing more visits? So, what have they said with the reopening of hair salons and stuff?
Okay. For us, it's the state board that really controls the shops. Whether they haven't really took any kind of leadership on, getting out there and making sure that the shops are correct. Like, I'm in Newark, so Newark has required, us. We're not even opening up today, right? We can't open up until the 29th. We have so they're putting us through some different levels of this. All right, thank you. Of what needs to be done, but I don't know. As the trained, from school, we have our training on what to do for cross prevention of contamination. So I don't know what will happen with these other. Every town is different, right? Even though the state board is what handles it, but it may not be the state board that shut those businesses down. I don't know, right? So it all depends. If the state board handles it, they do it one way.
Most of it is enforced by zoning, though.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, the state board is really neglectful, but most of it is done by the zoning from whatever governing body of that municipality. So it all depends on how they do. I just say to everybody, make sure everything you use is getting thoroughly clean before you touch it, or before they touch it on you. That's what I tell everybody. Because that's it. I mean, that's it. Right now, it's crazy. Like you said, Eric, with the place that they just shut down, the beer garden, it's ridiculous. I mean, people are just out here in the streets, and at these restaurants and these places, like, there isn't a disease in the air. And it just doesn't make any sense. It's like people, they're looking for it. It's like they want to get sick. That's what it feels like.
I was watching CNN this morning, and they were saying in Florida they have 122,000 new cases in the last couple of days.
Yeah. Well, and keep in mind, Florida was the last to shut down and the first to reopen.
Well, but here's the issue, and we talked about this last week, and I think I might have mentioned this to Farrakhan in a side conversation we had. We know, for instance, that there are, and somebody can look it up, how many automobile deaths there are annually in America, right? It's probably staggering when you look that number up. How many airline crashes and people killed on airlines, right? We could just go down the list of different things. So we understand that those things are going to happen. It doesn't mean that we stop driving cars. We just try to make them safer. We don't stop flying in airplanes. We just try to make them safer. And so we're going to be living with this coronavirus, right? And so the idea is, how do we make it safer? And so right now, the thing is, wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. Don't touch your face. Wear face masks.
6 feet
Right, 6
distance.
feet distance, right? But the fact of the matter is, we gotta have to live with it. And so, just like you have people who are driving with no seatbelts, right? You still have people who speed. You have people who don't adhere properly to the four-way stops at the intersections, right? So you have dangerous people in this world, in this country, right? Who ignore the laws. Government has to get on top of this. This thing kind of was on top of us first, but now government's going to have to get on top of it in terms of how to legislate stupid, right? But you're going to have businesses open because you have to have an economy. You have to have people working.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So the idea is no more warnings, right? You know what I used to love as a kid? Well, I hated it as a kid. Let me take that back. In retrospect, I love it now, even though I hated it as a kid. When I used to drive up, when I first got my license, I used to drive up Springfield Avenue into Irvington, right? If you double parked your car, right, even if you were sitting in it, you had your hazards on, the police would ride up behind you, and then you try to move, and they say, no, don't move now. You're going to get a ticket because you've already broken the law, right? Wait a minute. Wait, don't move now, right? But see, but what has happened is you see all the double parking going on. Why? Because they have laxed those laws, and what they do is they give warnings. So they pull up behind the car and tell you to move. And so now what the driver realizes is, hey, I'm going to get at least one strike, right? So I'm going to park here illegally. I'm going to wait till the cop comes. He's going to give me a warning. I'm going to drive around the block. So they've set up a system to kind of, if they went back to just saying, you know what, zero tolerance. If you double park because you know it's illegal, you do it, you're getting a ticket when I pull up behind you. So with these restaurants and outdoor venues, here is the law. Break it and you're done. It has to be a zero tolerance for it. Because anything less, you're going to wind up with what you have around the corner from me. And now I got to tell you, even that's changing because yesterday.
You're taking our freedoms, though, Eric. That's the sad part, right? These idiots out here talking about, you're taking my freedoms. You're making me wear masks. You're making me wash my hands. You know, like, people are just, we're stupid. Let's just be honest. Like, people are stupid.
I would rather take away their freedom than still take away my life. I'm with you, but and the other thing that we have to do is this. Remember how we talked earlier in the show that if you got this inoperable vehicle on your property, how do you find out? It's time for us to start telling. Cell phones, everybody. These salons, these businesses, everybody. These outdoor restaurants that have people going off. No. Start telling. Because the only thing that you're doing right now is becoming an incubator of this disease and spreading it, bringing it back to me.
Yeah.
No, I'm tired of this. People see with this virus, they're not playing footloose and fancy free with their lives. It's their lives plus the lives of everybody that they came in contact with. Oh, by the way, speaking of distance and contact, guess what the Blue Dot just did to everybody who has a Droid phone? It now tracks who you've been near. So, in the event that you contract the COVID-19 virus, they can look at your cell phone and see who you've been in contact with.
Well, I think you have to accept that app thing, right? I've been hearing everybody talking about that on the Apple phones, that like iPhones, whatever it's called. There's a new app, but it's like a permission though. You have to say you're willing to allow them to track it.
Exactly. So you can turn it off, which I turned it off, and it's an Apple product, which is an iPhone. Don't disrespect the Apple people, Farrakhan. You
Android, baby. I'm Android. I'm Galaxy Life, baby. Come to the Galaxy. Come to the Galaxy. All you gotta do is go in the settings.
Hey, wait a minute, Diane.
Galaxy.
Diane. Before you say, I'm gonna shut the Android and iPhone thing down. So, I've got wait a minute. I got Apple Watch. I got a Mac laptop. I've got an iPad, and I got my phone. And what none of your devices do, my devices all talk to each other. So if I'm outside and I got just my computer and I left my phone in the house, it'll ring on my computer. If I just have my iPad, it'll just ring on my iPad. I have an ecosystem. All my stuff is set up. That's what I love about Apple. So don't.
But what I hate about Apple, Eric, is because when you do your phone and I'm calling you from my Droid, I get cut off.
That's your Droid, not my phone.
Maybe it's that Droid that makes your volume so loud too, because Apple always has you come in crystal clear at the right volume.
It may be.
So speaking of you talking about Androids and Galaxies and all of that, I saw the worst movie on Netflix this weekend. I was so angry that I watched it, but I had to watch it to the end just to see what was going to happen, if it would get any better, and it didn't, and I'm still disgusted that I watched it. Tay Diggs was in it, and see, this is what I get for trying to support the black folks. I watched it only because Tay Diggs was in it, and it was the worst. It was called 3022. It's talking about being stranded. It was like they went out on this space station, and it's supposed to be out there for 10 years to monitor the space station or whatever, and then they get marooned because Earth gets blown up. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. This is it. This is the movie, and literally, it was an hour and 31 minutes of crap. I was so angry. My daughter fell asleep, but I had to watch it to the end. So if anybody has not seen it, it's a sci-fi thriller. It's not a thriller. It's sci-fi trash. Don't watch it. 3022, and I gave it a thumbs down on Netflix, and I sent a tweet to Netflix to tell them they need to give me a comment section so I can actually say what the problem is with these movies.
And you're really one of those people? I always wonder, like, who puts comments on things like that?
Yes.
I just be like, yo, who takes the time to put a Netflix comment on?
If I took the time to watch it, and it's crap, I want other people to save their time of an hour and 31 minutes they will never be able to regain again.
I appreciate that.
So bad.
I have to say this. I binge watched this weekend a Tay Diggs production on Netflix. It's called All American.
No, I appreciate you saving me time, Diane. You know, I used to read movie reviews, and you know, you find a good movie reviewer that you're in sync with, right? And it saved me a lot of money. You know,
let me tell you, that's what the Castle in Irvington was built on. It was built on reviews. We would go to the movies, we'd come back to school on Monday and say how good the movie was, and everybody would run back to go see that movie. That's what it's built on, reviews. Otherwise, who wants to waste their popcorn and candy and getting in the right position on your bed with the pillow to watch a movie that's crap?
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
I was a boy, so I just went to the movies to see girls. So it didn't matter what the movie was. I was trying to get girls. Now, I don't know what the girls
Yo, Farrakhan.
Yeah, but you at your house now. You sure to have your girl.
Farrakhan.
Well, Farrakhan, I did the same thing back then, too, because I had a castle boyfriend. So
wait a minute. So firstly, Cesare says All American is great. That's what he says. But to your point, Farrakhan, I loved the balcony. When I was younger, I loved the balcony at the Adams movie theater downtown Newark, man. That balcony was good to me.
I think we may investigate and find out where Eric lost his virginity.
Hey, who's talking about that?
I hope not.
But All American was great. I really love that. I can't wait to get to the next episode. And I'm still waiting for the next episode of, the next
Oh, you know
Oh
what?
yeah, Ozark is great.
Yo, oh well, I tell you, what was the two? The two that I got really hooked on, Ozark,
The
and then
Politician. Did you watch The
Hey, they
Politician?
I watched
cancel
the
Ozark?
I watched the
No.
No. Look, I swore I saw something talking about look at these Netflix shows that are canceled, and it was Ozark was like the the advertisement of it like that. I didn't go into their link, but
Oh no,
I
they
think
did.
they might have
that was the
canceled it.
teaser. No, that's the teaser. They just put out the I don't know if it's the final season, but they just put out a season maybe 2 months ago. It just came out.
Yeah. For all those that watched it, I just got one question. How did y'all feel when they shot her? I was messed up,
man. I was like, why?
I was like, it messed it all up for me. I didn't get it. I was like, yo,
It's
I knew
business.
something might happen to her eventually, but like that was like that messed me up. I was
No,
so
dude,
disappointed.
it's all business.
Uh-huh.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
So like you can't. So when you become emotionally attached, you lose sight of business, right? And so when she was shot, it's business, right? It's a pure business decision. Now the other show that I watched, Sneaky Pete. I don't know if you guys have seen it.
What's the name of it?
Sneaky Pete. If you've
The
not
first
watched,
season was great.
yeah,
The first season was.
yeah.
I have to check that one out. What is that one about?
Oh gosh, it's what do you call him? A grifter, right? I think that's the term, right? So, yeah, he's a grifter, and is always plotting scams, right? Hustles.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay.
Diane,
I
some
get
of
it.
them are so intricate, right? And it's so like I enjoyed it, and I binge watched that too. And then what else? There's
Did you watch The Politician?
I did watch The Politician.
They got the second season out. I think that is the funniest series ever, but so true to politics.
Yeah.
Wow.
But funny.
And then what's
And
the other?
it starts, and it's like college. They start in like high school politics. So he's running for class president in Beverly Hills, and then the second season is now he's running for state senate for New York because they're now in college. But it's very funny.
So the other show that I watched, what's the girl's name? She used to play on, and I used to love this sitcom, Married with Children. But the girl who played Kelly,
Christina Applegate.
right? She's in there's there was a series that she was in, and that she's in on Netflix, and we got to the end of it, and I don't know the name of it, but she plays a character whose husband was murdered or killed. He was run over.
Yes. That's oh gosh.
Diane.
Dead to us.
Diane.
Yeah.
Diane.
That is so good.
Isn't that show?
Huh?
Isn't she one of the producers in that show?
I don't know,
Oh,
but
don't
I
know.
love that
It's
one too.
really good.
I love that one too.
It is.
So listen, it'd be remiss without me saying this, and each of you guys on the phone, and the listeners, and I don't want to spend a lot of time with it, but somebody inboxed me and they said, Eric, you gotta say something. So I just real brief. And let me say this. I want to try to figure out. I don't want to use the show to promote, personal stuff that I'm doing. There's a lot of stuff that we got to work on in terms of building a community, and I want to focus more on that. But what I do want to try to do, if it makes sense, is to leverage what I'm doing in terms of my business building to talk about, to look at it as a case study, right? And then Vincent, you and I talked about, businesses that you're working on, and Diane, certainly your business, right? As case studies to talk to entrepreneurs about how to properly build business, right? And so
I
go ahead.
I think you should not use yours as a case study because, again, you know how I am about giving out too much information. Why not pick let another business come in and let's help them grow their business?
Well, we could
That sounds good.
we could do that.
We'll be like a business Shark Tank.
Yeah, because I'm just real leery about giving out that information, Eric.
Well,
Not that,
you know.
and in all honesty, I know you can give it out.
No,
People
no.
can't duplicate or replicate it. But
No.
still, I'm just like,
No.
trade secrets.
So no. So right.
Well, I'm real leery about it because I got 3 ex-wives.
So
Well,
I
maybe
mean,
you need counseling, Vincent. I don't think you need business advice. You need marital advice.
but I just want to try to figure out a way, right? Because one of the things that I do know that I have realized is for the hundreds of people who prayed for me, prayed over me, gave me well wishes, continue to this day to check in on me. There's a vested interest that they all and you all have, and I recognize that, right? But beyond that, I realize this too, that the moves that I make, people watch them, and it could be good or bad, right? I'd like to think that I could turn it into something good, even when people want to make it something bad. And so now, to see that, we've transitioned this business to having a major supermarket chain sign on to us, the question that people who have ideas have is, how do I get to that level, right? How do I get to that next thing? What is it that I have to do? And so there are a lot of brilliant minds in our community, but it's lack of exposure, Diane and Vincent, that they have that oftentimes leaves them, spinning their wheels in the mud, right? So they got an idea, they get to this point, and they don't know how to go further. And so what I want to try to figure out how to do, I want to do it responsibly. So we'll talk about it, guys. But I want to try to figure out how to maybe take a day, right? Create a show one day a week, or maybe once a month, whatever works, where we're saying, you know what, we want to present some very specific information, and we want to have people call in who have ideas, like you said, Vincent, a Shark Tank, except we're not investing, right? We're investing our time.
We're more like advising.
We're advising, right? And so you can call in and say, look, I got this thing, I'm thinking about doing whatever, blah, blah, blah. What are the things that you recommend, or how should I go about doing it? But I think that when you can show, sometimes you got to show people, right? So once you've done it, so Diane, you've had your business for how long?
2007. I don't know what year is this. 2007. 13 years.
So Diane,
This should be 14.
you've had a successful insurance business for 13 years. Vincent, you've been in business for yourself for how long?
Wow. Man. 1991.
Mm-hmm.
I've been self-employed, and I'm a serial entrepreneur like you, Eric.
Right. And what I do is I build. I've talked to you guys about it a plethora of times. I build businesses. I built them for other people, right? I've made them hundreds of millions of dollars, and I decided that I was going to turn all of those skills inwardly and build something. And so that's what I'm in the process of doing now. But to look at it, and to look at Diane's business, to look at what Vincent's doing, I think that our bona fides speak for themselves. And so now the question is, can we now be a resource to you as an entrepreneur in helping you take the next step? So I think that maybe we can do something. I don't know. We'll talk about it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I think that sounds good.
Right. So no, I don't think trade secrets. I think just practical advice.
I
Right.
think it would be useful. Absolutely.
Okay, so we'll set that up and we'll do it, and then we'll see whether or not. I mean, because look, as everybody comes out of this thing, and I titled it A New Day, right? So, in this new day, how are you going to capitalize on stuff?
Right.
And it's resources. You're going to need. I'm sorry? Oh, okay. So, yeah, how are you going to capitalize on things? How are you going to take advantage of opportunities and resources that are put before you? So we're willing to do that, or at least I am, and maybe it'll be helpful.
Well, also you look at now is the perfect time for a lot of people to start and launch their businesses. I mean, you look at corporations that have really started and are now blue chip stock, who started during the World War II era, the Vietnam era, the Gulf War I, and you're looking at companies that are now blue chip stock that started the Depression and the Great Recession. So now is the perfect time for people to actually launch their product. So if we can give any of our experience so that they can avoid some of the pitfalls that we have run into, I think it'll be a blessing to the community and to the country in general.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm excited to do that. So anyway, what else is going on, guys? Hey, Farrakhan. So wait a minute, Farrakhan, are you? I don't know if he's still on the phone. Are you officially open? Can I book an appointment to get a haircut? Amina would.
You can book an appointment, but it has to be after. For Newark, it's the 29th. So I should be officially open on the 29th.
All right, so I'm booking my appointment now. Wait a minute, Diane. I'm booking. I'm doing it right now. I'm booking my appointment. What day is the 29th?
I think that's Monday.
All right, cool. So I'm booking my appointment for Monday right after. Oh, wait a minute. I got the farmer's market on Mondays. So I got to book it on the 30th, on Tuesday. So I got Tuesday at 1:30.
Tuesday at 1:30 is you.
I'm there.
So,
Great, that's your time.
Are you going to be using a booking appointment app or something
I have
like that
set,
for people?
but I won't. I can do it now. I have it set now through my from the company that I use for my credit card services. But I'm not going to do it until we reopen, and I can show, because black folks is hard when it comes. They act like they can't do new technologies. Like they can't download it on their phone. So I'm gonna walk each of my customers through it, because I don't want them calling me. I'm not trying to answer the phone for 100, 200 calls a week.
So are you going to put up a sign or something in the window to let people know how to book? And how often, how many minutes apart are you booking your appointments, and how long will your day run now? Because now you won't have walk-ins. What will you do? How will you do?
I'm booking it for an adult men's haircut. That's an hour. Right? I got to give them a full. It's not going to take me that long. But I need that for the cleaning process in between and everything. So everybody's getting booked per hour and half an hour for shape ups. Kids, technically it's a 45-minute between, but it all depends on the kids. Some kids are easy and quick. Some kids take forever. So it just depends. But for right now, it's set hour and half an hour. It's just the easiest mathematically. So you do it that way. And, just got to rock like that. I will extend my hours. I haven't decided how late. I mean, it's summertime, so you can sort of go a little later. It's brighter, it stays light, later, so it doesn't get dark until late. So I can probably say I can go until 9 o'clock if I want. But I haven't got to make that decision yet.
Now, what are the laws in Newark? Because I know in Hillside, the salons have to be closed, I believe, at 10 p.m. What do they say in Newark?
I don't know. Well, I don't think any business is supposed to be allowed to stay open in Newark after 11. So that for sure I know. I don't know of any. I never pushed it that late officially. And Newark never really bothered you if you had customers in your shop. As long as you weren't taking new customers, I don't think they could really say anything to you. But for the most part, I always closed at 7, right? So that was my last walk-in could come at 7. And then however many people I had in there until it took me to get done with them. So, for my knowledge, I can only just say 11 o'clock is the latest any business in Newark can stay open. And
do you think that this scheduling for you is going to allow you to give more personalized service and be better for you in the long run? as opposed to people coming and going. And the other thing, are you making your clients prepay with the appointments? Because I know with my hairstylist, if they don't know new clients or certain clients, they make them put a deposit down. So this way, if they cancel on them and that time is already allotted, they lose their deposit.
I think that makes sense.
Now that's going to have to come into play. I'm sure I won't start it off like that. Once we get back into the swing and everybody starts coming back, then you can sort of work. I know my people, so I can walk them through it then. Right? To do it now, to say everybody's got to prepay now, it would just cause too much confusion. Jokers would be calling me up left and right. Con, I don't have a car, this, that, and the third. So you got to get everybody into it. So once I get everybody back, can sit them down, and while I'm giving them that haircut, break down how it's really going to go from now on, and then push it that way. But I would love for it to be, everything to be prepaid. But technically, they're trying to make that illegal. There are some people that say they want to just deal with cash, right? And because of that, no business can refuse cash business, right? In New Jersey.
Well, but you know what you could do?
I can tell you this.
Well, one of the things you can do is you can have them. Look, Khan not gonna talk because I'm sure that the majority of your customers have smartphones, right? So whether they have Cash App or Venmo, and they can set their appointments through those, and then they can put the deposit down through there. And so the deposit, so them setting their appointment through Cash App sets their time once they negotiated with you. And then for instance, we just set an appointment for the 30th. I would send you, if you wanted 50% deposit to hold the appointment, you'd get a Cash App from me, right, with the notation, my appointment on this day, and now you have it, and now my appointment is set. We're going.
Well, I know in North and South Jersey, they're open as of today. I'm sitting up here in front of my barber waiting to get my hair cut. My wife and daughter are booked for the whole day. Hair, massage, manicure, and pedicure. So, I'm about to go in here and yell at some people because they're sitting around without a mask. So, I don't know. I don't know how this gentle or soft opening is going to go. But I do know that there is an adjustment period, and I know that, we are going to have to, as entrepreneurs, be diligent about enforcing those things called masks. And I'd say, another thing is, which I know you probably did it already, Farrakhan, because you're pretty much a very forward thinker. I say with other businesses, I'm looking at some of them, get some hand sanitizer too, and make sure that your employees are washing their hands constantly. I mean, that is the only way for us to not turn into another Florida.
Absolutely, but I cut with gloves. And anybody that would work with me would cut with gloves. So, I'm still going to wash my hands, but I'm changing out gloves in between every cut. That's the key thing for me, to use at least, nothing should be reused. If it's possible for it to be disposable, it should never be reused again on a customer. Everything should be fresh every time somebody gets in the chair. And if you're not at I'll tell anybody who's listening, I don't know, I'm not going to talk about hairstyles, even though I could, but if you're going to a barbershop, fellas, and there is not a 10-minute wait before he starts to use the clippers on you, understand the clippers have not been sterilized.
Wow.
Okay? It takes 10 minutes of soaking. When they put that spray, we all seen the barber throw the spray on there, wipe it off, and then go to cutting it. It takes 10 minutes, according to their own label, for that disinfection process to start. So you can't wipe it straight off. So if your barber puts you in the chair right after somebody, you got a problem. It takes 10 minutes, okay? 10 minutes of wet sanitation in order for it to sterilize. But not even sterilize, that's disinfecting.
So I think there's going to have to be some type
and
of...
for ladies, Diane, I don't mean to cut you off, but for ladies, know this. When you go to the pedicure, to get your pedicures and your manicures, none of that equipment is supposed to be used on a second person. It's not even designed for that. So the bumper, the file, all of that are they are single-use items.
So when I go get my nails and my pedicure, and they do the buffing and nail files and all that stuff,
none of that should be used. It's not supposed to be used. The second, why do you think this stuff is so cheap?
Okay, right? So now I got this other thing. This nail place that I do go to, which I don't want to go to anymore because I want to patronize our people. So it's going to take me a minute to find somebody that's really good. You can go into the salon and they have these boxes where you could put your own nail products, like your nail file and all of that kind of stuff. Do you suggest that? So you know what I'm saying? It's like little, so it's like little mini boxes inside the nail salon, and they have numbers on them. And my number could be 63.
Oh, so and you have all your own supplies.
That's yours forever.
That's mine forever. I pull out 63. I sit down and we do our stuff with 63. You don't really know that other people won't touch it, but yeah.
Right. That's ingenious, and that's how it has to be now. Because the only other option is for you to bring your own. You know, like every time you come, just carry your bag and have all the tools that you want used on you and give them to them. But then the salon could refuse that. They can say, I don't know where that stands, so I can't use that. Right? That could be their argument. But yes, if they are telling you that you found a place where they do everything individual, well, like this is yours forever, your customer 63, and everything that customer 63 has is in that box, lockbox, that's how you should be doing it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Now, Eric, what I was going to say is I think there's something that we need to start talking about is, I guess, COVID-19 etiquette. Like, how do you address these servicers when you go to their business, like the barbershop, the nail salon, all of these various places, and they have to service you personally, hands-on with you, the massage places, all of these places. How do you have a conversation with them to not be rude and not get bad service, but still get clean service?
You just look. You have to have standards for yourself, Diane. You know. So if I go into, like anything else, if I go into a restaurant and I see that the cook is wiping his forehead with his hand, no gloves on, I'm walking out. Now I'm gonna notify.
Hey, Diane.
I'm sorry.
I apologize for cutting you off. I just want to say it's called three things: a smile, a please, and a thank you. There you go. That's all the etiquette you need. You smile when you say it, please, and thank you. There you go. Anybody? That's it. There you go. All the etiquette you need in this world.
That's good customer service right there. See, you go a long way with that. You're absolutely right. Thank you.
My mother's always told us that you can say anything. It's just how you say it. So if you're doing those three things, I mean, and you're getting your point across. You're not being rude or disrespectful, but you're also getting your point across. And as a business owner, you have to look at. Everybody has to look at one thing that's about to happen: the COVID-19 infection lawsuits that are coming. Because people are now getting ready to start suing if they can contract this disease in your establishment.
Oh, you know what, Diane? I'm sorry. I misunderstood the question. I thought you were talking about from a consumer standpoint. You're saying if you're the owner, what do you do? I got it now. So, yeah, I agree with Farrakhan. You know, but...
No, but Eric, doesn't that go either way? Right? If I get to a place, right, and I'm getting a service, right, you go and you see the chef doesn't have his mask on and he's cooking, right? And you say to him, excuse me, can you please put on your mask?
No, I know. For me,
thank you.
No, for me, it's different, right? So from the owner's standpoint, I have already set a standard for my business, right? And if you come in and not willing to adhere to that standard, please mute your phone, whether it is social distancing, wearing a mask, wearing gloves, whatever it is, then no, you have to get out of the store, right? And yes, I'm gonna say to you, here's what we appreciate your business, but we need to follow these rules. Now, the difference if I'm a customer and I see that behavior in the business, well, now we're getting back to what we were talking about in terms of structural, right? See, that whatever is going on in that business is going on. So even if, for me, you go ahead and stop wiping your forehead with your bare hand, or you put gloves on. The reality is all of the food prep you did before I walked in there was done in a nasty environment that you live in or work in. So no, I'm not going to patronize it. You're going to put your glove on for me and then take it off as soon as I walk out of the restaurant, because that's who you are as a business, right? Because I recognize that when I walk in. And so no, I wouldn't. I would just walk out. Now I might, like I said, I may tell the owner, hey, listen, I'm leaving your establishment. I was going to come here and eat, but I noticed blah, blah, blah. And that would be it, for me. And I'll tell you this too, because I did have to go through my Safe Serve certification and everything, right? So I've got all of those things that different, certifications to operate and manage a kitchen. Dude, it's crazy. When I walk into a place now, I literally can look around and tell you the number of violations that the majority of them, and all of them are violating in some way or another. It's just a degree to which you're willing to tolerate it as a customer. And most customers are ignorant to all of those violations. But me specifically now, whew, you're
right.
Well, I'm telling you, that's the reason why I do drive through and I don't go inside. I don't want to see it.
Ignorance is bliss. I tell you, because I look now, Farrakhan, and I say, oh my goodness. You could have an inspector come in there and shut. An inspector can come in and probably shut down 90% of restaurants right now.
Mm-hmm.
They're all in violation.
What's the easiest violation that you think they could shut them down? Because I know a few, but what's the easiest one that you think that many restaurants and grocery stores, these bodegas, could get shut down for? What do you think it is?
Well, a lot of it is cross-contamination. Exactly. Cross-contamination. Mm-hmm. Number one thing. The second thing is the usage of the sinks, right? So you have the hand washing sink, and then you have they use those different sinks interchangeably, and they shouldn't, right? Temperature, food temperature, right? Food temperature is a huge thing, and you go to places, you see stuff sitting out there, you try to figure out, man, how long they had that chicken sitting on that counter,
and the cleaning of spaces after applying raw meat.
Yes. Yeah. And it beat goes on. Look, well, let me not. I'm not.
Yeah, don't add no more.
I'm not. But temperatures.
Look, I told you about my client that I did the insurance. He had a bar, and the inspectors came out to inspect it for insurance and sent me back pictures and said, "Yeah, no, we're off of this on the end of the day. We're canceling this policy." I said, "No, what's wrong?" He said he had a cat in the kitchen. I said, "A cat in the kitchen?" He said, "Yeah, a cat in the kitchen." He said, "Sitting on the counter." I called the client back. They said, "We don't have a cat. We don't have a cat." The inspector sent me the pictures. I sent them to the client. The client said, "Oh, well, we keep the cat to keep the mice out." Ugh, so disgusting. So disgusting.
Listen.
That is.
Yeah. So we're at 12 o'clock. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Closing in on that book.
Yes.
When affirmative action was right.
I meant to read it this weekend, Diane, but.
Oh, did you get your hammock? How was your Father's Day?
I didn't. Yeah. I didn't get a hammock.
Well, maybe it's coming for Christmas. That's the next.
Well, no. What? You know what though?
That's the perfect time to set up an outdoor hammock.
I put the blame on me because I hinted. I didn't direct, and so now I'm going to direct. You see?
Hey, are you at the farmer's market today?
I'm gonna be at the farmer's market. You coming through?
Yay!
Where's it at again? Where's it at?
It's do you know where Freetown is? It's like an African kind of cuisine restaurant up on in Maplewood on Springfield Avenue. It's right. It's like a block and a half from there. It's in Maplewood.
Okay, so look, Farrakhan, if you're coming up Springfield Avenue, it's on Springfield Avenue. If you're coming up Springfield Avenue with north behind you, it's on the right side. It's past the dollar store. It's past the police station in Maplewood. but as soon as you get into the downtown area,
Freetown. I know exactly where Freetown is.
Exactly.
I know exactly. That's the new place. I know exactly where Freetown is.
Yeah, it's right.
Okay.
It's about a block up from Freetown on the right hand side.
Yep.
All right, I'll be there. I'm coming through.
Hey man,
Are you gonna have the same spot, Eric, on the corner?
We got the same spot every time.
Oh, good.
We're packing
Good,
up
good.
now.
I'll be through.
All right.
Hopefully.
Look forward to you guys.
All right,
Come stop by, say hi, take a selfie with us. We're trying to do big things, Grandma Emma's, and we're trying to, support the community as well. We've hired. Well, we'll talk about this too, but we've hired several people within the community, and they're making nice money.
Nice.
So yeah, so we're trying. We're trying to. I'm trying to walk the walk, right? So anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. I know, Diane. I have my walk the walk shirt on the other day.
I know. We gotta update our shirts. We gotta start with another slogan.
Gotta start with another slogan. I'm tired of slogans. I just want to get the work
I know.
done. I want to get the work done.
Just get the work done.
Hey, thank you guys for tuning
Have a
in. Love
good
you
day.
all. Have a great day. I'll see you in Farrakhan later.
Yep.
All
No
right.
doubt.
Bye-bye, guys.